وآدم وبين الماء والطين سيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا وحبيبنا وطبيب قلوبنا وعوننا وعيوبنا وغوثنا وغياثنا ومغيثنا ومأوانا وملجانا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وأهل بيته وعلى من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وأصحابه أجمعين وسلم. صلاة وسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Allah, whose name will begin, the eternal with no beginning, the everlasting with no ending. Peace and choice and salutation to the name of creation, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. We supplicate as we normally do in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts our ibadat. Ameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our suhoor, our iftar, our siyam, our qiyam, inshaAllah, and all the du'as. Khair. Firstly, I apologize, I got too well, quite heavily medicated still, so you'll forgive me for any lapses, inshallah. But we have, I think, mashallah, we have Shaykh Faheem who's here also, and I can also get some luqma from Brother Al-Dafri if required. Now, this is our third lesson on the Book of Quintessence by Shaykh Ibn Arabi, and in last week's lesson, we dealt with the subject of tashbih, tajseem, and we said a very high word in the English language known as anthropomorphism. And we explained that when someone assigns a physical attribute or a feature to a deity that we worship, then we call this anthropomorphism. Now, again, I did say last week that it's a very difficult subject to comprehend, the subject of Tawheed. So we're not going to delve any much more into that, right? In the previous lesson, the last bit of the comments were from comment number 2, or the point number 2 of advice from Shaykh Ibn Arabi. Just to recap a few things. He mentioned that we should turn to the Quran in a study of history, right? And because of the stories that are told. Now, the Quranic philosophy of history is very different to the way history is written by men. In general, as the saying goes, that history is written in the view of the victor. So there's always some type of bias when history is written and recorded by men. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again because of the subject of eschatology, one of my favorite surah, Surah Al-Kahf, in the opening verses gives us an idea of one of the functions of the Quran, one of the innumerable functions of the Quran. Alhamdulillah alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitab wa lam yaj'al lahu 'iwaja. So praise be to that Allah who sent this book and placed within it no crookedness. So first and foremostly, when you approach the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to know that this is a book with upright information, right? Then the very next word after لَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says قَيِّمًا. So it's not just straight, but it comes to straighten out crooked messages. So one of the functionalities of the subject of history in the Quran is a revisitation of history. So as an example, as Muslims today, we may have heard an incident, let's just say, reported by the Christian authorities or the Jewish authorities. And that particular information may have some correlation with the Islamic ideal on that matter. So let's just say there's a story of Musa alayhi salam, and that story is in the Torah. But we also have a similar story in the Quran. So what is the Quran actually doing? Is it just telling us the story again? No. It's actually telling us what is the correct account of the story. And when you read the correct account of the story, now when you read the story in the Torah or the Bible, according to our philosophy, now you'll be able to see what was changed from the original story. Because what is the Quran doing? It's straightening out the crookedness that was put in the other books as well, right? So the Quranic philosophy of history, unlike general history, which is a repository of information. History is basically a place where information has been written, and therefore it's in the books of history, in the books of in the pages of the past. But in the Quran, history provides for us information. So a person in the present time is given access to true knowledge of the past with view to correcting the present in hope of making a better future. So past, present and future in relation to the Quranic philosophy are all connected. We don't view history as a separate faculty on its own. It has to be connected to the present, otherwise it's just a story. So Shaykh Ibn Arabi rahimahullah, he mentions here that when we approach the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about stories and narratives written about peoples of the past, we should be able to extrapolate the information and what are the basic lessons that we can. Otherwise, we're just reading a novel, we're just reading a story. It's like pastime and entertainment, and that's not what the Quran wants us to do. Now, it's from here that he makes a quick shift from Huququllah to Huququl Ibad. So let's just read the text first, right? So he says in general, and again it's quite deep, the information. He says you should hold a good opinion of everyone and your heart should be at peace with them. You should pray especially in secret to and for the people of faith. And you should serve the poor, recognizing their excellence and nobility in that they are content with letting you serve them, and in their bearing patiently with their burdens, troubles, and difficulties. So very quickly, he says firstly, that we should hold good opinions of everyone, and the hearts should be at peace with people. Now, this is where we seem to have failed miserably, to the point that we now have a faculty of science that never existed before, which is called psychology. And this faculty is designed to assist people on how to deal with problems. And what's the first thing that the psychologists will probably ask you to do is to start from the beginning. What is the problem? Where did it commence from? In general, it arises as matters of the heart, because emotions, right? Emotions arise from the heart. So Shaykh Ibn Arabi rahimahullah is basically telling us that in order for us to be at peace, we must learn first to have good opinions about others. Because you'll find when you don't have a good opinion about others, your bad opinion about them troubles you more than it troubles them. You are worried about petty things about that person, but that person is unaware. You know, they say ignorance is bliss, right? But we must have good opinions. Now, there are many scenarios in history wherein people were found to have been in a position whereby if any one of us, illa mashallah, were in that particular place to witness that event, we would have most likely wrote the person off. But the people of true scholarship and Islamic knowledge stepped in and said, no, the matter is differently. Because why? The teaching was always about husnul dhan, to think positively about things. And unfortunately, again, and it won't be a bias at all, being of the Indian descent, but this is a problem that I find predominantly amongst us who are classified as Indians or Asians, if you want to call it, right? Because when you travel the world and you look at other cultures, they don't have this problem. It's probably there, but not to the extent that we have. Whereby, when we see somebody who's maybe progressed in life, or who's maybe had some kind of downfall, we automatically think the worst. So let's just say, right, Sheikh Munir, Allah Ta'ala give barakah, mashallah, he buys a mug tomorrow. Say Ameen.
Ameen.
Then the first thing that everyone will start thinking is negativity. I'm not driving, Sheikh, driving the car, where you got the money? See? Mentality, right? But acceptance of the reality of the situation is a different thing, which we'll come to, right? So we fail quite miserably when it comes to output. And I'll give you a very quick example of this from Rasulullah's time, right? Recorded in the major books of Hadith, Muslim and so forth as well, that Sayyidina Hatib bin Abi Balta'a radiallahu an, this is in the Medinan period of the Seerah, just about to the conquest of Makkatul Mukarramah is about to occur. Now just to give you an idea, especially our youngsters, those who are, as my bay over there, those who are following the Eturul, you'll understand what's the idea of conquest and fatah, right? Now, what we actually notice is, and we should know this by the rational faculty, when you are about to conquer another place, especially in those times, it had to be something that was steeped in secrecy. And anyone who let out the secret was a traitor, right? And traitors in general were killed. It's still today. If you're a traitor, you're spying. If you're caught spying on behalf of another country, you're going to land yourself in a lot of trouble, right? So a Sahabi of the Prophet ﷺ now comes into question. Just give you a little bit of context. So the Prophet ﷺ sent Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu to other Sahabas, and he says to them, go to XYZ place, you'll find a lady. And this lady is holding a letter. Bring that letter and come. Right? So, subhanAllah, look at how the Sahaba Ikram intercept the command of the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't ask him, oh, how you know? How you know there's a letter there? Right? Because they understood the ilm of the Prophet ﷺ as bestowed upon him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what they do is they go. They find this lady. Where the Prophet ﷺ said you'll find this lady, they find the lady there. She's isolated. So he inquires from her. They inquire from her, what are you doing here basically? And they said, look, we've been commanded to come and find you because you have a letter. We've come to intercept the information. This is now what we call gathering of intelligence, intel. She refuses. She says, you are mistaken. I have no such letter. Because that is a Sahaba Ikram. But now the Sahaba Ikram are saying, you have the letter. And by Allah, even if we have to search you, although in general, a male would not search a female. But because Nabi Karim ﷺ said you have a letter, if we have to search you, we will have to do that. So when she saw them persisting, she said, fine. So she pulled out this letter which she had hidden. And the letter is taken to the Prophet ﷺ. And the letter had information from a Sahabi in the camp of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who divulged information to his family in Makkah al-Mukarramah that Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam is going to make Fatah of Makkah. Now what would we call this? Treason. So naturally, Umar bin al-Khattab was there. He says, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, give me permission, I'll take off his neck. And just to divagate and digress for a moment, people who have an extremist nature, and you say, no, Umar radiallahu anhu is a scapegoat. That, oh, Umar radiallahu anhu always, this was his nature. So you can't blame me for acting like this. No. You must look at the entire narrative. Every single time that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu reacted this way, there is not a single time, in my opinion, that the Prophet ﷺ gave him permission to continue with his emotional reaction. He always quelled the situation down and caused Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala to apply the rational faculty. Whenever Sayyidina Umar said that, give me permission to cut off your neck, the Prophet said, Bismillah. He always said, hold on. Right? So we don't use Sayyidina Umar radiallahu as a scapegoat for our extremist characteristics that we have, and we don't know how to deal with scenarios. Right? So when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu again, he reacts this way, that this is treason, because al-fatwa al-zahir, right? So the fatwa is on what's apparent. The Prophet ﷺ says, no, you will do no such thing. Let us call him and ask him. You see the importance? Let us call him and ask him. Because in today's time, when someone brings us any type of evidence about anyone or anything, what we do? What Shaykh Ibn Arabi is saying, what? We should have a good perception of people. So when we see information, what we do? We take a decision. But what is Rasulullah teaching us to do? Make an inquiry. And this is also based in Surah Hujurat, the verse that says that when someone comes to you with information, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, you should verify. There should be authentication of the information. Now, therefrom, the Prophet ﷺ then calls him and inquires. Look, we've intercepted the letter, this is your writing, this is the scenario, and here we are at the situation. So what is your view on the matter? How do you plead? So Sayyidina Hatim bin Abi Balta radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I am not a traitor. I am with you. But I have some family in Makkah, and I have some property in Makkah. So I thought that at least if I let my family know, that they can, before anything happens, if there's going to be any bloodshed, whatever the case may be, that they slowly can flee, so that they don't get involved, and our property is safe, whatever the case is, right? Rasulullah ﷺ, this little reason against what a massive thing that was done, Nabi Kareem ﷺ accepted his reason. And he let him go. And when he's walking away, the Prophet ﷺ reminded the other Sahaba Ikram that Hatib bin Abi Balta'a is from those who participated in the Battle of Badr. And he says it may be that because of his participation in Badr, Allah Ta'ala has allowed him to do what he wants. Right? Point being what? Even when the information is against a Muslim brother, a Muslim sister, the good Muslim is supposed to find every excuse to save our perception in a positive way about those people rather than reacting in a negative manner, right? Now, another aspect, and again I don't want to spend too much time on this in relation to the way we perceive things. We can go a little or one step further, right? Whereby instead of just looking bad about people in relation to their qualities, their akhlaq, their adab and their etiquette, we take it one step further and now we become the judges of judges, where we now are assuming that we know everyone's iman located in their heart. This is a bigger problem, right? So are you saying that whoever you are, you have the power to look into the hearts of people? Again, established hadith, you'll find it in the major books of the Sihah as well, that Sahabi goes and kills someone, right? And then he comes to the Prophet ﷺ and says, you know, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, something's bothering me. I don't want to get into the detailed narrative because we're going to shift a bit too much. But before I slayed him, he said, La ilaha illallah. But I thought he was saying La ilaha illallah because he was afraid of my sword. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him that, did you open his heart and check? Before you killed him? Did you open his heart and check? Meaning, we are not in a position, and we are reminded of this every single day, in every unit of every rakat, we recite in Surah Al-Fatiha, that the ultimate judge on the day of Qiyamah is Allah. And if you can come to an understanding of that, you will stop judging people, and you'll start having positive perceptions of them, right? Now, he then says that, let's skip that because we don't want to delve too much into that. So he mentions we should have a good opinion of everyone and our heart should be at peace. He says we should pray especially in secret to and for the people of faith. Now, this should be something as common knowledge because, example, in our salah. In our salah, after the tashahhud and our durud Ibrahim, there are dua kalimat that we recite. And in this, we make dua for all the Muslims. Muslimin, Muslimat, Mu'minin, Mu'minat, right? And this is where the paradox comes into play between our supposed belief that we utter and our display of our characteristics. They generally are like in opposition. Because in your salah, you make dua for all the Muslim brothers, you make dua for all the Muslim sisters, right? But there's someone in that saf that you got a gripe with. There's someone in that saf, in that masjid, you don't like him. But you're making dua for them. Now, you're making dua Muslimin, Muslimat, Mu'minin, Mu'minat. You know all the Muslims in the world? No. But you're making dua for them. So then what about the Muslims who you know? How much of more dua are you supposed to be making for them? So we've reduce dua only to a few Arabic words, that you can't make dua if you don't speak in Arabic. But are we talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we speaking about what is required from us? And when the du'as are being made, they're more connected to the dunya. Ya Allah, I want a bigger house, I want a better car, I want a better... It's all connected to the dunya. Where's the du'as coming about strengthening our iman, giving us hidayah? You know, all of these important factors. So this is an important point. And he's saying, do it in secrecy as well. That it shouldn't be, you know, before I went to sleep, oh, you know, I just made dua for the whole ummah, hashtag humbled. Just send that thing over to everybody, right? It goes against. So we should be doing these type of things for the benefit of others, but this should be done in secrecy between us and our Rabb, right? Now, in relation to perspective again, we can only bring about this type of understanding when our perspective changes about people. And this is why he started with a focus on the heart, because the heart is at the root of everything that we do as Muslims, right? And in these perceptions, as an example, somebody wrongs you. It's about how you deal with the situation. So somebody wrongs you, and if you accept that you've been wronged, then you will eventually forgive them. But if you hold on to it, then you will build hatred. Now, if you accept the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that somebody wronged me, khair, it's done. Allah ta'ala forgive them, Allah ta'ala forgive me, give me hidayah, you will move on. But if you get stuck in that scenario and say, oh, every day you're thinking about that person is moving on with their life like normal. Who is under stress? The person who continuously is, you see? So it's all about the way we deal with things, and these kinds of perspectives can only come when we understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? Then, Shaykh Ibn Arabi, he mentions that you should serve the poor, recognizing their excellence and nobility, right? And in that they are content with you, with letting you serve them. This is a very, very, very important point. So he shifts the discussion after the importance of having a clean heart, a pure heart. From there, he moves to the subject of serving the people. But in serving the people, it should start where? With the poor, those who are needy. That's where you start, right? Now, in the subject of rizq and earnings and all these things, one of the problems of the 21st century Muslim is me, myself, and I. So when you reach a certain position in your life, then you look back at what I have achieved, what I have done, all the finance and the money that I have accumulated. And then in essence what we've done is we've secularized, we've removed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from that entire system of thinking, right? So in this manner, we must always be grounded and understand why, example, Surah Al-Baqarah commences the way it does. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And they spend from that which we give them. So your money and your belongings is not really your belongings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing you. It's an amana. What you do with it. And if you understand it this way, that nothing in essence is mine, you won't have too much of a problem when it comes to letting go. But if you want to hold on to it because it's mine and mine alone, then letting go becomes a bit of a problem. And even when we are we giving in the correct way? So, as an example, and again this applies to all of us, when we are giving things? So let's just say someone is collecting clothes. Are we giving away old clothes that we no longer have use of? Or are we giving clothes that we are currently using? This is important. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will never achieve distinction until you give from that which you love most. But the problem is that, alhamdulillah, it's still good that we're giving, but we'll give things that have no value to us, and then we feel righteous about it. But the true sense of giving would be to give things that are close to our hearts. Because then when you actually give it away, it has more value. You appreciate it more. So these are the little things that we need to change by changing our perspective. And this is why Shaykh Ibn Arabi, he starts by speaking about the heart and then goes on to discuss the subject of charity. Right? Now, we move on very quickly to the third pointer, which he mentions as advice to people who are seeking spiritual path. He says, amongst what is indispensable for the seeker is keeping silent except for mentioning Allah or reciting the Quran or guiding someone in the right way who has gone astray, or exhorting or telling someone to do what is right and forbidding them from doing what is evil, or reconciling those who have broken up, or strongly encouraging acts of voluntary charity. Now, the preferred method of a student of this path, and when I say student, I don't mean a little child. In our deen, you are a student of knowledge from the day you're born till the day you die. And Rasulullah told us that seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And the beauty of Islamic knowledge is, the more you try to unravel the mystery in the Quran, the more you realize how little you actually know. That's the beauty of the book, right? So here he says that one of the fundamental things that will help you on your mission to achieving the path of spiritual equilibrium and success would be to always remain silent. Silence is the best option. And when you choose to speak, you need to think about what you are discussing, how necessary it is, and how much of value are my opinions going to bring to a specific subject. And if I am speaking, is it about Allah? Is it about the Quran? Is it about guiding people? So even here, it's still connected to the heart and the way we perceive things. And then if the tongue is known as tarjamanul qalb. It is the interpreter of the heart. The tongue is the interpreter of the heart. Whatever you generally feel, it comes out from the tongue. And this is why a hypocrite, a munafiq, is abhorred in Islam. Because his tongue and his heart are not in harmony. Why? Because his heart feels one thing, but his tongue says something else. The tongue and the heart are not in the salam, right? They're not in the submission. So that's a munafiq. Now, and I don't mean now the type of hypocrite that you need to send to the asfar fil nar, not that. I'm talking about in general, right? So Shaykh Ibn Arabi, he brings about the subject of the heart, speaks about the importance of charity and all these things to change perspective, and then tells us the importance of remaining silent. Now, how many times people have been in a situation, and after speaking, they say, hey, I should have just kept my mouth closed. Right? But this is the primary lesson that is teaching us, that don't be hasty in saying a thing, don't rush, and if you say something, try to make the first point of your statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the sunnah of Rasulullah. This way, whatever you have to say can't really be opposed, because who is saying it? Allah. Who is saying it? Rasulullah, right? These are important things. So, he speaks firstly about mentioning God, dhikrullah. Now, let's clarify something. In the modern understanding of dhikrullah, we've come to understand it as something that is in the culture of, I don't know around the world, but in some of the countries like UK, South Africa and so forth, where there's a certain day of the week that's reserved for people, like a Thursday evening, in which people gather and they make the dhikr of Allah. So in general, when people say dhikrullah, the assumption is that have a gathering. Now, this is not what dhikrullah has always been. It's a form of dhikrullah, a type of dhikr, it's just one aspect of it. It's not limited to a gathering of dhikr. So you tell someone, make dhikr. The guy will tell you, but Shaykh, I can't make dhikr. I have to wait for Thursday to come. I have to wait for the Maulana. Huh? No. So that means then, when Allah Ta'ala says, remember Him, فَذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ, is He telling you that you must first be an alim, then remember me? No. So everyone has the ability to remember Him, right? So the concept of dhikr is not necessarily coming in a gathering and saying Allah, Allah. This is just one minuscule or infinitesimal portion of the subject of dhikrullah, right? We've actually kind of limited it to that but it goes beyond that scope in more ways than one, right? So he says we should remain silent, and if we speak, we should make the dhikr of Allah. So let's understand very, very quickly how we should, or a more practical approach to dhikrullah that's very, very simple, right? Now we live in a secular world, secular age, in which they have separated God from state. As a result of separating God from state, this is also rippled down to the field of education, whereby now God is no more remembered in schools. Like when we were small, we used to go, there used to even be a prayer. Even though if it was not a Muslim prayer, there was a prayer, right? That's even been removed to a great extent. So this complete secularization, and even in the knowledge that is imparted, okay? So knowledge is no longer considered to be something of the divine, but only aspects that human beings can acquire through experience and knowledge of the senses and so forth. Now, in this particular material world, which is bombarding us through the secular age with materialism, and the way they've structured it is very, very smart on their part, and they bait us and we fall for it. As an example, if you look at stats on how people are baited through adverts. So if you're a soccer fan, then the things that sell the most to men are advertised in those breaks. But if you're a female and you like watching something else, then the things that are attractive to females, those things are marketed in those advert breaks. Why? Because they know their market, they know their audience, so they know what to put out there to draw you in, and then we get drawn by these things, right? The simple way, which many of my those who study with me are here, will tell you this: the simplest and best way to keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your day as a remembrance is through our daily du'as. And this is what I believe was the great hikmah in why Rasulullah taught us this. And these are the fundamental things we were taught at madrasa. But if we maintained it, then it would have taken us probably on a different path. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us on the straight path, inshallah. When you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to read a dua. Anyone, what's the dua? Quickly. Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhi nushur. The moment you wake up, the first thing you're supposed to do is remember Allah. That's the first thing, right? Then, isn't it before we enter the bathroom there's a dua, correct? Then when you look at your beautiful selves to get ready in the mirror, there's a dua. Then before you take a bath, there's a dua. When you exit the bathroom, there's a dua. Then before you eat your breakfast, there's a dua. After you eat your food, there's a dua. After drinking your water, there's a dua. Before leaving the home, there's a dua. Get on your vehicle, there's a dua. Reach your destination, there's a dua. This process continues until when you reach home, before you sleep, Allahumma bi ismika amudu. So what you've actually done? You've made dhikr. Everything that you've done in your day, you've done it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as part and parcel of. You've not separated Him from those actions. So this is one of the best and most practical forms of dhikr. You know why? What's the beauty of it? When you left home and you made a dua of journey, and on the way, when you make this journey, if temptation comes through, you've already protected yourself from that. Two ways. One, you've already taken protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And two, subconsciously you are aware that how can I, a person who just took the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then do this? So you're subconsciously raising your awareness in everything that you do in the day by simple daily du'as. And in this way, you are making the dhikrullah. Now, he mentions that aspect, and then he speaks about if you have to talk, then another good option would be speaking to guide someone who has gone astray. And alhamdulillah, this is a good thing. It's a good initiative. But of course, there is a mannerism. There is an etiquette in how we do this. Unfortunately, this particular book is about adab, quintessence, which I told you in the first lesson, about the perfection in our character. It's no use us wanting to correct the mistakes of others, but doing it in a way that is insulting towards them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I said to you before, "Ud'u ila sabil rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'idatil hasana." Call to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wisdom, not knowledge. Not knowledge, with wisdom. You know, I battle to understand the difference between this. I can't give you the traditional way we understand this, but for your understanding, is knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is not putting it in fruit salad. Yeah. So the difference is what? Having the ilm of a thing and then being able to apply the ilm of the thing is two different. This is why ilm, la, meen, and amal. One is theory and one is practice, with the same letters if you mix them around, right? So that's important. So when you guide people also, you need to ensure that you do it in a way, you don't call the person in front of 10 other people and start picking out faults. Then you embarrass them. You first start off by saying, I am no better than you in such and such thing. Please don't take offense to what I say. I mean no harm. I only mean good for you. This is what I've seen. Maybe you have your reasons for it, but this is how it should be done. And in this way, we correct people in a loving way. But you're going to stand on one side of the masjid and tell someone who's talking loud on the other side of the masjid, hey, don't scream. What have you just done? You screamed in the masjid to tell someone not to disrespect the sanctity of the mosque. So there's no wisdom in that, right? Then he says that the other option would be in reconciling those who have broken up. This is a very important factor and part and parcel of being a Muslim. Not just limited to marital counseling. This is not what he's speaking about. The concept of silatul rahim and maintaining good ties with family and friends as believers is a very, very fundamental part of the basis of our society as a ummah. Unfortunately, we have people who have some very, very bad habits. Shaitan's job is to go from person to person and whisper dark suggestions in the ears of people to create rift. But many Muslims don't realize that they are helping shayateen in this role. So they go from person to person, they carry this tale, they see something wrong, instead of dealing with it in the appropriate way, they go and tell the third person and the fourth person and the fifth person, and the problem is never ever dealt with. So what you're actually doing? You're doing the same thing that shaitan is doing. You're taking a whisper that has nothing to do with one person, and then that information gets carried on, and this snowball effect kind of continues. And this is very, very bad behavior on the part of Muslims, right? Allah Ta'ala cleanse our hearts from this type of behavior. So he's basically advising us to be peacemakers and not troublemakers. And to be a peacemaker, you have to always try to step in. It doesn't have to be family, it doesn't have to be friends, anyone. We should always try to be those who bring people together. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. Whenever there was a matter, he stepped in and he used his intellect to sort of resolve the problem. But unfortunately today, we'll make salam to family, we'll make dua for them in salah, but we have this deep-seated animosity or jealousy or envy or enmity or hatred for XYZ member of our family. Yet, that person is a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. We stand in the same saf in salah, we come to the same gatherings, but there's a build-up of hatred. So he says that we need to be those who can identify these problems and also assist in reconciling in these particular matters, right? And I think we'll probably conclude there. And strongly encouraging acts of voluntary charity. So his last point that he mentions is the relevance and importance of voluntary charity. Now this is important. Zakat is fard upon us. And this we know. And those who have dispensed it, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it. those who have not. It doesn't have to be done only in Ramadan, right? And this is the point we're making. If we look at our pillars of Islam, the ones in which there are actions required from us. So, if we take zakat as an example, we take out zakat considering it to be fard, correct? So, it's fard, therefore we take it out. The problem is, when we give out our zakat, we assume that that was all that was asked of me. I don't need to do. And guess what we do? We say, what is the percentage? The lowest of the low. Yes? Look, it's fine, because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed you. It's not a guna. But it's very, very rare, illa masha'Allah, where people are saying, okay, let me give extra this year. Right? So, zakat is fard, but we are of the opinion that we should take it out once in a year. But let's just leave that point there for a moment. Let's take salah. Salah is fard upon us, correct? Now, if we calculate the amount of fara'id rakats in a day, and then if we calculate the amount of sunnah, mu'akkada, sunnah ghayr mu'akkada, and nawafil, which is more? The fara'id salah or the others? The others. So what is fard, what is compulsory for you, is a bare minimum. But the voluntary requirement of salah is more. Same goes for siyam. There are 29 or 30 days of fasting, which is what? Fard in Ramadan. But if you take the 3 sunnah days of the month, 13, 14, 15, and then you take example, if you only take them, 1 month times 10, you're already over the number. What about the Mondays and Thursdays? Right? So the voluntary in Siyam is more than the requirement of what is fard. Look at Hajj. The compulsion of Hajj is once in a lifetime. And even if you have the money to do it every year, you can only do it once in a year. But Umrah, you can do every day, whenever you want. Right? Point is what? That he's saying that we should not consider only that which is fard upon us in charity to give that out and feel righteous about it. There is a little bit more that is required from us. We should involve ourselves in those things, because these are things that heighten ourselves in the spiritual sense, gives us guidance, and also assists in helping others. So we'll stop there inshallah, and next week we'll continue a little bit more. Very, very quickly, for those we have been mentioning to you, inshallah, on the 21st of June will be our annual fundraising event. I have actually brought the tickets with me today for those of you who would like to support the initiative. Right? So basically on the 21st of June, which is a Friday, the theme of the fundraising dinner this year is debunking the myth of Islam and terrorism. And the reason we chose this is, well, there are a few reasons, but mainly because of the perception within society today, and I'm sure you are well aware of what happened in New Zealand, where a man went into the masjid and opened fire. It was live streamed and so forth. And obviously he was inclining to the Christian faith, and we as Muslim, we don't blame the entire Christianity for what the man did, unlike what the rest of the world does. When any Muslim, supposed Muslim, does an action, the whole of Islam gets blamed for it. But because there's this synonymity with Muslims and Islam and terrorism, so we've decided to try and clarify certain false notions, false allegations that are made by certain lobbies out there, whether they are atheistic, whether they are apologists from the Christian side, apologists from the Jewish side, and to try to clarify certain things, because what they've done is they've actually taken Quranic text and text from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and they've misused it. So alhamdulillah, with your du'as as well, I've just finished the book in relation to the subject, which we've titled Defense Against Disaster, a response to the systematic vilification against Islam and its Prophet ﷺ. It was finished, alhamdulillah, on the 17th of Ramadan, coinciding with the Battle of Badr. And There are major allegations that people have made against the Prophet ﷺ. They've called him a suicidal prophet, ma'adallah. They've used Islamic texts to justify this. They've called him, ma'adallah, a pedophile because of his marriage to Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha. They've called him a false prophet, and they've actually taken verses of the Quran and hadith. Now you as a Muslim, someone comes and tells you, and they show you an ayah and they show you a hadith, it becomes problematic. So alhamdulillah, we've managed to refute most of these arguments, especially arguments as well from people the likes of Richard Dawkins, David Wood, the infamous apologist who makes what we call mockumentaries against the Prophet ﷺ. So it would be nice if we could see each and every one of you for that event. The tickets are here, they're at sale, for sale at 200 Rand. Inshallah, you can get it. I will leave it with Brother Altaf, inshallah. You can get it from him immediately after if you are interested. And inshallah, the book will be launched at the same event. And we would really appreciate the support. And Jazakallah again for attending this dars. And inshallah, we'll continue next week. If anything good has been achieved, the praise belongs to Allah. The faults belong to me. Astaghfirullah. Wa bimin kulli dhanbi wa atubu ilayh. Wassalamu alaikum.